So I want to start today with a verse.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, when I first read this in the prep materials you sent over, my eyes just, they kind of glazed over.
I get that. Some of these can feel a bit dense at first.
It felt completely impenetrable. And you really have to stick with me here. The more I looked at the cross-references, the more I realized this might be the most accurate description of a glitch in the matrix I've ever read.
I love a good riddle. So which verse are we talking about?
Okay, I'm going to try to do it justice. It's from the Itivuttaka, Sutta number 63. Here it is. Sentient beings who perceive the communicable become established in the communicable. Not understanding the communicable, they fall under the yoke of death. But having fully understood the communicable, they don't conceive a communicator. A knowledge master cannot be reckoned.
Wow. A knowledge master cannot be reckoned. I mean, that's a mic drop, basically.
It is. But it sounds so mystical. The communicable, the yoke of death, it all feels very abstract. But the mission for today's deep dive is to show that this isn't poetry. It's basically technical support.
Technical support for reality.
That is the claim.
What is that?
We're cross-examining two very different sets of sources today. On one hand, we've got this viral physics video, What is Reality? It's all relativity, quantum mechanics, the block universe.
The heavy stuff.
The heavy stuff. And on the other, we have this stack of ancient Buddhist texts, the Pali Suttas.
And the thesis is that they're somehow describing the exact same phenomena.
Exactly. The thesis is that modern physics and ancient Buddhism agree on this one. Terrifying, but also liberating fact that time and the observer, the you inside your head, are just a user interface.
The dashboard, not the engine.
Precisely. They aren't reality itself.
It's a bold claim, but the parallels are, they're honestly startling when you line them up. To really get it, though, we have to go back to that weird word in the verse you read, the communicable.
Yeah, that word trips you up. Beings who perceive the communicable. It sounds like you're talking about a disease or something.
Right. It's a translation of the Pali word akaya. It literally means that which can be declared or expressible.
So language or concepts.
Usually, yeah. But here's the key. In this specific text, the Buddha gives it a very, very rigorous definition. He defines the communicable specifically as time.
Time, as in past, present, and future.
Yes. He says, what is the communicable? That which has been, that which will be, and that which is now.
Okay, so when the verse says beings who perceive the communicable, it's actually saying beings who perceive time. Beings who buy into the timeline.
Precisely. Beings who are stuck in that narrative of, I was here yesterday, I am here now, I will be there tomorrow. Beings who think the calendar on the wall is some fundamental truth of the universe.
And if you get stuck in that view, the text says you fall under the yoke of death.
Well, think about it. If you believe the timeline is the ultimate reality, you are in for a very, very rough ride. Because all timelines have endings. If you identify as a character in a story, well, the story ends. The character dies.
That's a little ominous. But let's ground this. The physics video, it starts somewhere much simpler. It doesn't start with death. It starts with an apple.
The classic example. It's the perfect place to start taking the world apart.
So picture an apple. You hold it. It feels solid, right? It's red. If I throw it at you, it's going to hurt.
For sure.
But the video argues that if you take a knife, or I guess a particle accelerator, and you slice that apple down to its atoms, the apple just vanishes.
It dissolves. We know this, but we rarely feel the weight of it. Atoms are 99.999% empty space. The nucleus is this tiny speck in a giant stadium.
So why can't I just put my hand through it? If it's mostly nothing, why does it feel like something?
Force fields. The only reason you feel solidity is because the electromagnetic fields in your hand are repelling the fields in the apple.
It's like two magnets pushing against each other.
Exactly. You aren't touching stuff, you're touching forces. Solidity is a sensation, it's not a material fact.
Okay, so step one in the deconstruction. Matter isn't solid. That's already unsettling. But then the video drops the hammer on time, too. It brings up the block universe.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really counterintuitive. It's the standard model from Einstein's special relativity, but it messes with your head.
Walk us through it. Because I feel time flowing right now. I feel like I just started this sentence, and now I'm finishing it.
That feeling of flow, that's the illusion. See, relativity shows that space and time are linked into a four-dimensional fabric called space-time. And because your now can be different from my now, depending on our relative speed, there's no universal now for the entire universe.
Which implies that the past hasn't really gone anywhere.
Correct. The physics suggests that the past, present, and future all exist simultaneously. Think of reality like a DVD or an old movie reel.
Okay, I'm picturing a DVD.
You might be watching scene 5 right now. That's your subjective now. But scene 10, the future, and scene 1, the past, they are physically on the disc at the same time. They exist.
You just haven't played them yet. The flow of time is just how our brain reads the disc.
That's the idea. We're living in a frozen block of space-time. Everything that will happen has, in a sense, already happened. Or rather, it just is.
Now bring that back to the Buddha, because that sounds terrifyingly similar to the communicable.
This is where that sutta gets a little spooky. Remember the line. Beings who perceive in terms of concepts are established in concepts. The word for established is patihita.
Patikitu.
It means stuck, fixed, pinned down.
So if I believe I'm a person moving from 1990 to 2070, I am patihita. I'm stuck in the concept of the timeline. I'm pinned to the block.
You're asserting that you're an entity traveling through that block. You're claiming a coordinate. And the verse says, not understanding the communicable, they fall under the yoke of death.
Because if you identify as a thing in a timeline and the timeline has an end,
then you have to die. Concepts have beginnings and ends. By identifying with the concept, you inherit its mortality. The warning is, don't mistake the map time and language for the territory. The map is fatal.
But here's the problem, and this is where I get stuck. Why do we even have this map? If the world isn't solid and time isn't flowing, why does it feel so convincingly like it is? Why did we evolve to see a lie?
The video brings up a great theory for this, the interface theory of perception. The idea that evolution didn't design us to see reality, it designed us to survive.
The dashboard analogy, I really like this one. It just clicks.
Right. Imagine you're writing an email, you see a little blue icon on your desktop, you click it. Now, is the reality of your computer a blue square?
No, of course not. The reality is magnetic states on a hard drive, electrons zipping through logic gates.
Exactly. But if you had to toggle magnetic bits just to write an email, you would never finish it. You'd starve before you hit send. You need the blue icon. It's a lie, but it's a useful lie. It hides the complexity so you can operate.
So colors, sounds, solid apples, these are just desktop icons for quantum fields.
That's the theory. We are operating a dashboard. And the Buddha had a term for this desktop. He called it namarupa, name and form.
Namarupa. I've seen that term a lot. I always just thought it meant mind and body.
It's deeper than that. He argues that we never touch raw reality. We live entirely within the scope of language. We don't interact with atoms. We interact with the label Apple. We live in the menu, not the source code.
And this gets even weirder when we talk about the feedback loop, the twisted rope, because in physics, you have the quantum measurement problem.
The observer effect, this is the one that really bothers physicists.
It bothers everyone. The idea that the world waits for you to look at it before it decides to exist.
It's a fair point. In quantum mechanics, before you measure a particle, it exists as a wave of probability. It isn't here or there. It's potentially everywhere. It only solidifies into a specific thing at a specific location when it's observed.
So the observer forces reality to render, like a video game where the room only loads when you walk into it.
The act of looking collapses the wave. But here's the catch. And Suññatā nailed this 2,500 years ago. The Buddha describes a cybernetic loop. He says consciousness causes name and form.
But name and form also causes consciousness.
It's a recursive loop, a twisted rope. You can't have an observer without data to observe. But the data doesn't render as a world until the observer looks at it.
It's a chicken and egg situation.
It implies the world isn't some container we're just placed inside. It's a participatory event.
No.
John Wheeler, the physicist who coined the term black hole, called it the participatory universe.
That is dizzying.
Yeah.
It means reality isn't out there. It's generated by the interaction between the mind and the data.
Which leads to a very practical question. If the world is a simulation generated by this interaction, where is it running?
Right. If I'm in the Matrix, where's the server room? This brings us to the story of Rohitasa. And I have to say, seeing a character named Skywalker in a Buddhist text was a bit of a surprise.
The Rohitasa Sutta, it's a fantastic story. Rohitasa was a being who could travel at incredible speeds.
A literal Skywalker.
Basically, he claimed he could step from one sea to the other, and he made a vow. He said, I will travel to the end of the world. He wanted to find the edge of the cosmos.
And did he? Did he hit an invisible wall?
He died on the journey, never found the edge.
That sounds exactly like the expanding universe problem in physics. The idea that space is expanding and some parts are moving away from us faster than light. You can never reach the cosmic horizon.
Precisely. You cannot escape the simulation by traveling through it. You can run across a video game map forever, but you'll never find the computer processor by running inside the game. The processor isn't on the map.
So what was the Buddha's solution? If you can't fly to the edge, how do you get out?
He redefines the world. He tells Rohitasa, I tell you, friend, that it is not by traveling that one can reach the end of the world, but it is within this fathom-long body that I declare the world, the origin of the world, and the cessation of the world.
This fathom-long body.
That's
You're
right.
talking about the human organism.
He's saying the world, the stars, the galaxies, the feeling of time, is a projection occurring inside your cognitive framework. It aligns with something like the holographic principle in physics.
Which suggests our 3D reality could be a projection of 2D information.
Right. If the world is a projection, you don't escape by traveling. You escape by finding the projector and pulling the plug. You shut down the mechanism inside that's rendering the universe.
Okay, so we need to find the off switch. But what's keeping the machine running? What's the engine? Because if I stop thinking about the world, it's still there when I wake up.
Is it? Or does it just boot up again really quickly the moment consciousness returns?
Okay, don't do that to me yet. Let's look at the engine. What drives this projection?
For that, we go back to the Itavuttaka. The Buddha asks, what powers this whole simulation? His answer is taksha, or craving, but he uses a very specific phrase, tansha dutyo.
Craving as a companion.
Or craving as a second. Think about what craving does to your mind. It creates a duality. I want that. It splits the unified field of experience into a subject, me, and an object, the thing I want.
And it creates time. If I'm craving something, I'm usually craving it in the future. I want that sandwich, or I want this pain to stop.
Exactly. Craving is the engine of mental time travel. It keeps us leaning forward into the next moment, chasing something that hasn't happened yet. This constant leaning creates the illusion of the timeline.
So we're trapped in the block universe because we're constantly trying to get to the next slice of the block, addicted to the next frame of the movie.
Yes. And this brings us to the most radical point in both the physics and the ancient texts, the deconstruction of the self.
The video talks about the ship of Theseus.
Right. The classic paradox. If you replace every plank in a ship, is it the same ship? If all your cells change, are you the same person?
I mean, I feel like the same person I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But biologically, I'm a completely different pile of atoms.
And the Buddha takes it even further. He says most of us are stuck in a binary trap. We think either everything exists, I'm a real solid soul, an eternal observer, or nothing exists. I'm just a biological robot.
Materialism versus nihilism.
And he says both are wrong. Reality is a verb, not a noun. It's a process of arising and passing away. There is observing, but there is no observer.
Wait, run that by me again. Observing without an observer. How does that even work?
Think of a whirlpool in a river. It has a shape, it exerts force. But is there a thing called a whirlpool that's separate from the water?
No, it's just the water moving in a particular pattern.
Exactly. If the water stops moving, the whirlpool doesn't go anywhere, it just ceases. The Buddha is saying the self is a whirlpool. It's a pattern of craving and sensing.
So there's no little man inside my head watching the movie.
That idea of a little viewer inside your brain is the ultimate glitch. In physics, there's no solid center to the universe. There are only fields and relations. The observer is just an emergent property of the feedback loop, not some separate entity.
So, if there's no observer, who is suffering? Who is stuck in the communicable?
That is the question that dissolves the problem. If you realize there's no you stuck in the block universe, the whole structure of suffering just collapses. You can't be trapped in a cage if you don't actually exist.
Okay, my brain is officially melting. But we promised people a way out, a debugging manual. We've established the world is a projection and the self is a glitch. How do we apply this? I still have to pay taxes.
For that, we turn to the Mālakkāpukka Sutta. This is the concise instruction manual. It's for a guy who is old and basically wanted the Cliff's Notes version before he died.
I appreciate that. So what was the instruction?
The Buddha gives him an algorithm for processing data. He says, in the seen, there will be merely the seen. In the heard, merely the heard. In the sensed, merely the sensed.
It sounds simple, but what does it actually mean? Merely the seen.
It means you stop the rendering process at the raw data.
Okay, walk me through that. A practical example.
Light hits your retina. That is the seen. That's the raw data. But immediately, your brain, driven by that engine of craving, runs the interpretation software. It says, that is a chocolate cake. It looks delicious. I want it.
Right. I've turned the photons into a story with a subject and an object.
Yes. You've overlaid a narrative. You've created a me and a cake and a future eating. The instruction is, stop at the photons, acknowledge the visual experience, but don't boot up the craving software.
That sounds incredibly difficult. It's asking us to override millions of years of evolution.
It is. It requires radical attention. But if you can do it, the Buddha describes a collapse of coordinate space. He tells Mālakyaputta, then you will not be there. When you are not there, you will not be here, nor beyond.
You are not there. The Pali is Natatha.
It's the experience of non-locality. If there's no subject me and no object, the distance between them vanishes. You are no longer a data point in the block universe. You've deleted the coordinates of self and time.
And this brings us all the way back to the start. But having fully understood the communicable, they don't conceive a communicator.
They don't conceive a communicator. They don't imagine an observer. They realize the show is watching itself.
And that final line, a knowledge master cannot be reckoned.
Reckoned means calculated, classified, defined. Physics is the science of reckoning. It tries to calculate your position, your velocity, your mass. It tries to pin you down in the block universe.
But if you stop the internal projection,
You cannot be calculated. You're off the grid. You are no longer in the communicable world of time and language. You have become uncalculable.
you've exited the simulation.
Precisely. You haven't gone anywhere. Remember, you can't travel out of it. But the simulation has stopped rendering you as a fixed entity.
So, to summarize our journey today, we started with a solid apple and found it was mostly empty space. We looked at time, found it was a frozen block. We looked for the universe, found it was a projection inside our own heads. And finally, we looked for the person watching the projection and found no one there.
It's a complete deconstruction of reality, stripping the paint off the walls until you see the studs.
It really makes you think about the tools we use. Science seems incredible at mapping the cage. It can measure the bars of the block universe down to the tiniest detail.
But these ancient texts, they seem to provide the key to walk out of it. They suggest the trap isn't the physical universe, but our cognitive attachment to it, our insistence on being an observer.
I want to leave everyone with one final provocative thought from that video. It's been haunting me. It mentioned Boltzmann brains.
Oh, this is pure existential horror.
For those who don't know, in an infinite universe, it is statistically more likely for a fully formed brain, complete with false memories of a past life, to just fluctuate into existence out of chaos for 1 second than it is for an entire universe to evolve over billions of years.
Which implies you might not be a person with a life history. You might be a momentary hallucination in the void that just thinks it's listening to a deep dive. So if that's true, and you are just a momentary fluctuation who is listening to this, just the listening, merely the listening.
Thanks for joining us in the void. See you next time.